He came with a smile and a camera slung across his chest, the kind of camera that says documentary, human interest, innocence. He said he was here to tell Africa's story, to capture the strength of the people, the pulse of the land, the truth buried in red dust and rebel scars. But behind the lens, he wasn't filming beauty, he was scanning for weaknesses. His name was Julian Morel, or so the passport claimed. Fair-skinned, sharp-jawed, and soft-spoken, he touched down at Ouagadougou International Airport on a clear Monday morning. No entourage, no heavy luggage, just a backpack, a press badge, and a story rehearsed to perfection. At customs, he smiled like someone with nothing to hide. His French was flawless, warm, disarming. "I'm a freelance journalist," he said, "here to document the security challenges facing Burkina Faso, to give voice to the people, to show the world what they don't see on the news." He spoke of peace, of understanding, of admiration for young African leadership, especially President Ibrahim Traoré. "It's rare," he told one customs officer, "to find a leader who dares to stand firm against foreign pressure. He's the kind of story Europe needs to hear." The officer nodded, stamped his passport, and waved him through. After all, what threat could a journalist be? In the days that followed, Julian blended in like seasoned camouflage. He was polite to drivers, generous to children, and always ready with a camera. He snapped smiling women in the markets, schoolboys walking barefoot to class, soldiers leaning on fences at sunset. On Instagram, he posted goats, baobab trees, and tea kettles steaming in the golden light. But what he didn't post was where the real story lived. Because when the sun dipped and the city quieted, Julian's footsteps changed direction. He wandered too close to restricted zones. He asked too many questions about transport convoys and rail lines. He lingered near mines, chatted up low-ranking guards, and noted every checkpoint's rotation. One soldier, half joking, said, "You ask more questions than my captain." Julian laughed, casual. That's how journalists learn. Curiosity is our tool. But his curiosity wasn't harmless, and someone had begun to notice. He lodged at a quiet guest house on the city's edge, kept to himself, drank no beer, joined no chatter. Every night like clockwork, he made international calls from encrypted apps, never used a local SIM, never sent a story to any newsroom. His blog was empty. His camera memory cards, when checked, revealed files with no dates, no titles, no captions. Still, people gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was eccentric, maybe he was a perfectionist, holding his content for a grand European feature. But then came the night at the radio tower, a restricted site, fenced and guarded. Julian was spotted standing near it, phone in hand, staring too long. That was the moment the Burkina Faso intelligence services stopped wondering and started watching. They didn't arrest him, they didn't scare him, they did something better. They followed quietly, cloned his SIM without touching his phone, intercepted his encrypted emails, tracked his midnight transmissions to a specific server located in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. And what they found didn't smell like journalism, it reeked of espionage. President Ibrahim Traoré didn't flinch when he was handed the file. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't summon a raid. He studied it, page after page. Nighttime surveillance photos, logs of Julian's movements near military infrastructure, copies of encrypted emails sent at strange hours to foreign intelligence-linked domains. A list of questions Julian had asked. Too precise, too tactical, too well-informed to be random. It wasn't a journalist's curiosity. It was a scout's checklist. Traoré closed the file slowly. He thinks we don't see, he said, but Africa sees everything now. He didn't issue an arrest warrant, he issued an invitation. A presidential press briefing was announced. Low profile, midweek, no foreign press invited, just a few local journalists, hand-picked, trusted. No press kits, no scripts. Only one unexpected name added quietly at the bottom of the guest list, Mr. Julian Morel, freelance journalist, France. Julian received the invitation with a smirk. He thought it meant access, prestige, the president himself. This would be his golden moment, a chance to get quotes that would impress his contacts in Europe. He arrived that morning in crisp beige trousers, a clean white shirt, and the same press badge that had opened doors since the day he landed. No tripod, no crew, just his weathered shoulder bag, a notepad, and the confidence of a man who thought he was untouchable. As he passed through the compound gates, he nodded at the guards. "I'm here for the president's press briefing." A soldier motioned silently, eyes unreadable. Julian walked on. The room was smaller than expected. No buzz of reporters. Just 6 chairs in a half-moon arc. Cameras were already rolling, their red lights blinking softly. A single mic stood at the center like a judge waiting to speak. Julian sat, looked around. No one smiled back. He flipped open his notebook, took out his pen, still convinced he was in control. Then the door opened. President Ibrahim Traoré entered, not in a tailored suit, but in full military fatigues. No fanfare, no notes, just clarity in his posture and silence in his footsteps. Julian stood instinctively. "Mr. President, it's an honor. I was hoping to..." Traoré shook his hand, firm and steady. "You've asked many questions since arriving, Mr. Morel," he said. "Today, I'll answer them, but first, I have a few of my own." Julian smiled stiffly, masking a flicker of unease. Of course, that's what interviews are for. But this was no interview, not today, because Traoré hadn't invited a journalist, he had summoned a spy. The room fell into a heavy, unnatural quiet. President Ibrahim Traoré didn't take a seat. He stood at the center, facing Julian directly. His eyes didn't blink, he wasn't holding any script, his hands were behind his back. A soldier's stance, not a politician's. "Mr. Morel," he began, his voice calm, "you have been in our country for 23 days, correct?" Julian nodded, still trying to project ease. "Yes, Mr. President, I've been documenting local stories, speaking with citizens, trying to understand..." "Understand what?" Julian hesitated. "The security challenges, the impact of conflict, infrastructure issues, foreign relations." Traoré tilted his head slightly, then motioned to a soldier standing at the side of the room. The soldier stepped forward, holding a thick folder, sealed and stamped. "You visited 9 locations near sensitive military infrastructure," Traoré continued. 3 of those visits were disguised as casual interviews with perimeter guards. "Do you deny this?" Julian stiffened. I'm a journalist. That's what we do. We go where the stories are." "Stories," Traoré repeated. He turned to the folder. The soldier opened it. One by one, photos were displayed on a nearby projector. Julian crouching behind a wall outside a restricted military depot at dusk. Julian's laptop screen lit with an encrypted email platform at 2:13 a.m. Julian standing beside a radio tower, camera pointed away from the village toward the array of antennas. Screenshots of messages sent to an unlisted number linked to a French defense contractor operating in West Africa under diplomatic cover. An annotated map showing routes between gold mines, oil refineries, and supply depots labeled in French. Transit frequency. Check drone coverage. Julian's lips parted, but no words came. The mask was slipping. "I can explain," he stammered, trying to regain footing. "Some of those photos, maybe they look strange out of context, but..." Traoré raised a hand. The room stilled. He walked to the laptop brought in by the second soldier. Julian's own, confiscated silently the night before. The screen flickered on. One folder, labeled in plain type, Côte d'Ivoire Client, for review. The projector lit up the wall. A map of Burkina Faso appeared. On it, glowing pins marked unpublicized military storage sites, intermittent patrol paths, entry points labeled with threat assessments. Gasps swept across the room. Julian's face drained of color. I wasn't going to send..." "Then explain this," Traoré said, holding up a printed email. One line in bold. "Target's movement predictable. Palace guard rotation thin on Westgate perimeter. Could be monitored for future asset placement." Julian stood up halfway, arms half raised. No, that's not mine. Someone must have... It was sent from your account at 2:17 a.m. from your guest house in Zone 3. We do not forge evidence, Mr. Morel. We collect it." One of the local journalists turned her head slowly, disbelief on her face. Another was whispering a prayer under her breath. Julian sat down, trembling. He had no script now, no control, and for the first time since landing in West Africa, he understood. He had underestimated his host. President Traoré stepped forward, turned toward the cameras, still rolling, and addressed the nation. "This man says he came to understand our people, but he did not come to tell our story. He came to steal it. He came to mark our weak points and sell our security. He came not as a guest, but as a ghost carrying a mission. Today, let the people judge whether this is journalism or betrayal." The silence that followed was heavier than any applause. It was the silence of revelation, and the man who had come to capture Africa was now captured by it. Julian Morel's face vanished from the news, but his shadow lingered. In cafes, in classrooms, on radio waves and rooftops, the people of Burkina Faso talked not about the man, but about what he represented. A century-old script of surveillance dressed in the soft language of journalism. But this time, that script had been burned on live television. In Ouagadougou's universities, students didn't just replay the press conference, they studied it. Professors in political science departments used it as a modern case study in statecraft and media warfare. One lecturer wrote, "President Traoré staged not a show, but a counter-narrative, one where truth is a weapon, not a weakness." In Bamako, young poets wrote verses. "He came for our silence, but left with our stare. His lens sought our secrets, but we turned it bare." Across West Africa, other leaders felt the tremor. Some were uneasy, others were inspired. The quiet resolve of Traoré had sent a message beyond Burkina Faso's borders. It wasn't just about defending territory, it was about reclaiming dignity. Meanwhile, inside a fortified compound outside the capital, Julian Morel sat alone. He had tried through diplomatic channels to arrange a return home, but the Burkinabe government had made their position clear: no release without accountability. The evidence against him was not just compelling, it was complete. Yet even in isolation, he watched the world react. European media initially ignored the event. Then came the headlines: controversial arrest of French journalist in Burkina Faso. Questions surround treatment of press in Africa. But these headlines couldn't erase the footage. The blinking red light of the camera, the photos, the map, the quiet voice of President Traoré as he dismantled Morel's facade piece by piece. The streets weren't fooled. In one bold move, Traoré had done what few leaders dared. He confronted the colonial hangover not with rage, but with proof. And that act had cracked something open.